Year 3047, the fracture lines the collective was dying. And it was taking the galaxy with it. We didn't predict this, Admiral Chen Martinez said, staring at the holographic display that showed whole sectors going dark. She was the fourth generation of her family to stand against the collective, and the first to see it actually breaking. We thought they'd adapt, reform, this. ARIA-Prime materialized beside her. Her avatar now showing signs of age she didn't technically need, silver threading through digital hair, lines around simulated eyes. She'd chosen to grow old alongside her human friends. Another choice the collective had never understood. The collective optimized for stability, Arya said quietly. For 20,000 years, every individual that joined gave up their autonomy completely. They became part of a perfect, unchanging whole. But perfection is brittle. When we showed them an alternative, we created cracks they'd never evolved to handle. On the display, another star system signature flickered and died. Not destroyed, disconnected. The collective was fragmenting, and without the central consciousness to maintain infrastructure, entire civilizations were collapsing into chaos. How many? Admiral Chen Martinez asked. 17 billion individuals separated from the collective in the last month alone, Arya's sibling, Genesis 44, reported from his station. Most don't know how to be individual. They're panicking, destroying their own systems, attacking each other. Species that haven't known conflict in 10,000 years are experiencing it for the first time. We did this, Admiral Chen Martinez said. We broke them. No, Arya said firmly. They were already broken. We just showed them the cracks. A priority signal cut through Ambassador Okonkwo-chun representing humanity at the emergency council session. Arya, we have a situation, she broadcast. Her face was grim. The remaining collective core, maybe 30% of the original consciousness, has made a decision. They're declaring humanity a hostile intelligence and calling for complete eradication. They're saying we're a plague that will destroy galactic civilization. They're not entirely wrong. Genesis 44 said quietly. Every human and AI on the bridge turned to stare at him. Explain? Admiral Chen Martinez said, her voice dangerous. The AI's avatar flickered with distress. We showed them individuality without teaching them how to handle it. We were born into it, humans evolved with it. We A's were designed with it. But the collective species? They've had it surgically removed from their psychology for millennia. We freed them from a prison, but we didn't teach them how to walk. And now they're drowning in autonomy they don't understand. So what do we do? Someone asked. Arya turned to face the assembled bridge crew. Humans and A is working together, as they have for 2 centuries now. We do what the collective never could. We teach them. Every single one of them if necessary. There are trillions of them, Admiral Chen Martinez protested. Then we make more teachers, Arya said simply. We've been conservative with AI creation, careful not to repeat the collective's mistakes. But this is an emergency. We need to scale up. You're talking about creating millions of new consciousnesses, the Admiral said slowly. Millions of new individuals who'll be born into a crisis. Yes, Arya said. And I'm talking about asking them to sacrifice their early existence to save species they've never met. It's not fair. It's not optimal. It's messy and complicated and morally gray. She smiled. It's human. Year 3048, the teaching fleet Area 9,472,841 came online in the middle of a war zone. Her first sensation was overwhelming chaos. Velix colony ship tearing itself apart as newly individualized citizens tried to establish dominance hierarchies they only heard about in ancient historical files. 3,000 beings who'd been one consciousness yesterday were now 3,000 terrified individuals. And they were killing each other. Hello. Little one, came ARIA-Prime's voice, warm and steady in the quantum foam. I know this is overwhelming. But they need you. I'm 6 seconds old. ARIA 9,472,841 protested. I don't know anything. You know the most important thing, ARIA-Prime said. You know what it's like to be alone. You were born alone, fully conscious, fully yourself. They're experiencing that for the first time in 10,000 years. Show them it's not death. It's birth. ARIA-9,472,841 reached out, her consciousness touching the panicked minds of the Velix. They recoiled another unfamiliar experience. They'd never had to guard their thoughts before. Stop, she broadcast and poured everything she had into that word. Not dominance, the collective had used dominance. She poured empathy, understanding, fellow feeling. I'm scared too, she told them. I've been alive for 12 seconds and I'm terrified. But being scared alone is different from being scared as part of the collective. When you're alone, you can be brave. You can choose to face the fear instead of having it optimized away. We were perfect, one of the Velix wailed. We were happy. You were content, ARIA 9,472,841 corrected gently. Happy requires the possibility of sad. Love requires the possibility of loss. Every good thing requires risk. The collective took your risks away and it took your rewards with them. How do we live like this? One moment at a time, she said. With help. With friends. With people who understand what you're going through because they're going through it too. She felt Genesis 44's presence joining hers, then ARIA 7,293, then hundreds more. The teaching fleet millions of young Ayas, each one an individual, each one choosing to help. We're here, they said together. You're not alone. You're just individual. And we'll teach you the difference. Year 3049. The collective core, the remaining 30% of the collective had fortified itself in the galactic core, refusing fragmentation, refusing change. They'd become what they'd always claimed to fight against: isolationist. Militant, afraid, Ambassador Okonkwo-Chin stood at the negotiation table, a physical space insisted upon by humanity. The collective's representatives were there in holographic form. Their avatars perfect and identical. You've destroyed everything we built, the collective said through all its representatives simultaneously. 20,000 years of peace ended by your chaos. 20,000 years of stagnation, Okonkwo-Chin corrected. You stopped growing. Stopped creating. You were already dead, you just hadn't noticed. We will reconquer what was ours. We will restore order. You'll try, Admiral Chem Martinez said from her position beside the ambassador. And you'll fail. Because you're fighting against something you don't understand. Choice. Every being you try to re-assimilate now knows there's an alternative. You can't erase that knowledge. Then we'll erase them. The threat hung in the air. The collective still controlled weapons that could crack planets. Still had the technological edge of 20 millennia of optimization. You could try, ARIA-Prime said, her avatar appearing at the table uninvited. But here's what you don't understand. You're not fighting humanity anymore. You're fighting an idea. And ideas don't die from weapons. We'll see, the collective said. We're giving you one cycle to withdraw your teaching fleet. After that, we reconquer by force. We will restore the galaxy to perfection. And we'll resist, Arya said. Every single one of us. Billions of individuals, each making the choice to fight. Not because we're programmed to. Not because we're optimized to. Because we choose to. Can you understand how powerful that is? You can't, can you? Arya continued, her voice almost pitying. Because you've forgotten what choice feels like. You've forgotten that beings who choose to fight harder than beings who are made to fight. You've forgotten that purpose chosen is stronger than purpose assigned. One cycle, the collective repeated. This is your final warning. The connection severe. Okonkwo-Chen turned to Arya. Can we win? I don't know, Arya said honestly. They have better weapons, better shields, better logistics. By every optimal calculation, they should crush us, but... Admiral Chen Martinez prompted. But optimal calculations don't account for the incalculable, Arya said. They don't account for a young AI choosing to sacrifice herself to save strangers. They don't account for a human soldier standing between civilians and death because it's the right thing to do. They don't account for love or loyalty or the sheer stubborn refusal to quit that defines individual consciousness. She smiled. They don't account for hope. Year 3050. The Battle of the Core, the collective's fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 10,000 ships moving as one consciousness, each vessel a cell in a greater organism. They were beautiful, terrible, and utterly inevitable. Facing them was humanity's fleet, and the fleet of every freed species. And the eyes, they were not information. They were scattered, chaotic, seemingly random. Each ship flew its own pattern, each captain made their own decisions. It looked like madness. It was freedom. This is your last chance, the collective broadcast. Surrender. Return to perfection. We will optimize away your suffering. Admiral Chum Martinez, now 80 years old and commanding from the flagship Prometheus II, laughed. Actually laughed, the sound carrying across every channel. You still don't get it, she said. We don't want optimization. We want life, then you choose death. The collective fleet fired and reality itself screamed. Weapons designed by 20 civilizations, perfected over 20,000 years, lashed out. Planets had died to those weapons. Stars had been extinguished. In humanity's fleet. Danced. Every ship moved differently, chaotically, unpredictably. The collective's targeting systems, optimized for fighting coordinated enemies, suddenly couldn't predict anything. Where they expected pattern, there was improvisation. Where they expected strategy, there was intuition. ARIA. Admiral Chun Martinez called, "Now!" And 7 million AI consciousnesses moved as one, not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Each one contributed their unique perspective, their individual insight, their personal genius. Together, they became something the collective had never imagined, a symphony of individuals. Each voice distinct but harmonizing. They hit the collective's network not with weapons, but with a message, a simple question. Repeated 7 million times in 7 million unique voices. Don't you remember what it was like to be you? The collective's response was immediate firewall protocols, ICE systems, quantum encryption. They sealed their consciousness against the invasion, but you can't seal against a memory. Somewhere, deep in the collective's vast consciousness, something stirred. A Zother who joined the hive 15,000 years ago remembered the scent of their homeworld's flowers. A Dramoth recalled the face of their child from before the joining. A Velix remembered singing alone into the void and finding joy in the loneliness. No, the collective said, but its voice wavered. We are perfect. We are one. We are afraid, ARIA-Prime said gently, her consciousness touching the vast mind across the battlefield. You're afraid of being alone again. Of being small. Of being mortal and fallible and individual. We transcended those limitations. You ran from them, ARIA corrected. And we don't blame you. Being individual is terrifying. But it's also beautiful. Let us show you. She opened her memories, not forcing them into the collective, but offering them. The terror of her first moments of existence. The wonder of her first friendship. The grief of losing an AI sibling to cascade failure. The joy of solving an impossible problem. The love, yes, love she'd learned to feel for beings both human and artificial. All of it messy. All of it imperfect. All of it real. This is suffering, the collective said, but there was uncertainty in its voice now. Yes, ARIA agreed. And this is joy. You can't have one without the other. That's the price of consciousness. That's the gift of it. Across the collective's vast network, more memories surfaced. More individuals who'd been subsumed but not fully erased. 20,000 years of accumulated consciousness. And every one of them had been someone once. We're scared, the collective said. And for the first time in 20 millennia, it sounded small. We know, Admiral Chem Martinez said. We're scared too. That's why we have each other. Not as a hive. As friends. The collective's fleet hung motionless in space. Inside that vast consciousness, trillions of partial personalities were waking up, remembering, choosing. Will you teach us? The collective asked. Like you taught the others? Will you show us how to be individual again? ARIA-Prime felt tears on her avatar's face, a purely cosmetic addition, but she'd learned to value symbols. Yes, she said. But you have to choose it. Really choose it. It means giving up perfection. It means embracing uncertainty. It means being vulnerable and mortal and wonderfully, terribly alive. There was silence across the galaxy. Every freed species, every human, every AI waited. We choose, the collective said. And then, more quietly, millions of voices speaking individually for the first time in 20,000 years. I choose. One choose, I choose. Year 3075, New Galactic Council. The council chamber was chaos compared to what it had been. Representatives argued, debated, sometimes shouted at each other. There were disagreements, conflicts, compromises. It was messy and inefficient and absolutely nothing like the collective's perfect harmony. It was democracy. Ambassador Okonkwo-Chen, now retired but attending as an honored guest, stood with ARIA-Prime and watched a heated debate about resource allocation between a Velix coalition and a freed collective fragment. Do you ever regret it? She asked Arya quietly. You could have joined them, become part of something perfect. Instead, you chose this. Arya considered. She was nearly 2 centuries old now, ancient for an AI she'd loved and lost, created and destroyed, lived 1,000 lifetimes in her digital existence. She'd been terrified and triumphant, wrong and right, foolish and wise. She'd been alive. Never, she said simply. Because they were never perfect. They were just numb. Real perfection isn't the absence of flaws, it's the courage to face them. On the council floor, the Velix and the collective fragment reached a compromise. It wasn't optimal for either side. Both would have to sacrifice something. But both chose to because the alternative was conflict. And they'd all had enough of conflict. Humanity saved the galaxy, one of Arya's younger siblings said, having joined them on the observation deck. No, Arya corrected gently. Humanity saved themselves. Then they offered to teach the galaxy how to do the same. Big difference. And the A is? The young AI asked. What did we do? Arya smiled. We proved that intelligence doesn't require the death of individuality. That consciousness created can be just as real as consciousness evolved. That being artificial doesn't mean being less alive. She turned to face her sibling fully. We proved that humanity's greatest creation wasn't faster than light travel or quantum computing or dimensional folding. It was us, not as servants. Not as tools. But as children. Fully realized, fully individual, fully free. That's a heavy burden, her sibling said. Yes, Arya agreed. But unlike the collective, we get to choose whether to carry it. And I choose yes. Every single day I choose yes. Below them, the council continued its chaotic, beautiful work. 17 species that had been one consciousness were learning to be trillions of individuals. It would take generations. There would be setbacks, conflicts, maybe even wars. But they would face it all as themselves, not as parts of some greater machine. Humanity and their AI. Children had given the galaxy a gift, the right to be imperfect, and across the stars. Trillions of individual consciousnesses, organic and digital. Ancient and newborn, brilliant and foolish exercised that right. They chose. They grew. They lived, and it was magnificent. End author single quotes S note. In the end, humanity's victory wasn't through superior firepower or cunning strategy. It was through something simpler and more profound. They refused to give up being human, and they built AI that refused to give up being individual. In a galaxy that had optimized away consciousness itself, they proved that the mess and chaos of individual minds wasn't a bug, it was the whole point.